They like to shuffle us around. Mixing our toes. Big ride.
Yeah, this is the normal lineup.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our special called business meeting today. We will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We'll declare the meeting open. I'm going to ask Councilmember Justin Dobbs if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we give you praise for making today a reality. Guide our words to reflect your purpose. Remind us to put you first. Also, God, we thank you for our freedom and for those who greatly served our great nation as we bless this food. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and do citizen comments. Is anyone here to make any comments to the council this morning? Okay. If not, we'll go ahead and fill our plates. Take a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have the council fill their plates first, and so we can get started. And those that aren't, just keep it to a no roar, because we'll get started as soon as the council sits back down.
Yes. Please. Start us off.
Amazing.
I moved the controllers for it. It should be fine now. Mouse and keyboard works as well.
First, second, third, do you have a separate? Is it a desktop or a?
It's a desktop, so back there I have this one.
Okay, so it's like.
There's like several different devices connected.
Gotcha.
Also, technically, like everything right now is being recorded, so like they're hearing us right now. Just a reminder to everybody that.
So this is junior. This is junior speaking.
And being YouTube. But yes, it does work. Pointer works at the top as well. Also, these keys.
Sarah, which are you seeing this movie?
I cannot answer and then I noticed that the shoes so maybe the other bigger
Yeah, man. I should have called it last night too. Yeah. Well, I was hearing Brent talk for 3 hours straight.
I'm doing great. What happened back in 72? Come on.
Yeah, that sounds, why didn't you accomplish the 15 tasks I left you? Have you ever tried to leave any tasks? I don't either. Hey, I know she won't do We're in our marriage vows that it say you'll be the one who thinks of things for me to do.
Hey, you're not so tall that you have to go vertically challenged.
I pretend that I am.
All right.
With my ego.
It makes you this tall.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'll figure out how to do it myself. Bill's my plate way too much. You're starting to put stuff on my plate for me to do. But it is my fault because, you know, I make no bones about it. I enjoy myself. Tuesday's movie day. Movie club day. Let's see a movie Tuesday. I'm a third way for
Which is awesome.
Very good. That was going on my movie Tuesdays. I'm in the movie club the whole time, man. It's me and a couple 70-year-olds. My mom sometimes visits me on Tuesday.
Family outing.
So,
That's part of the issuance permits to get into your house. The city's 46,000 houses in Sherman and that seems like a great thing.
Oh, other side. Did they come? This is TxDOT's traffic count map.
yeah.
So they show traffic counts all over. And I think they just renew them every year.
So with the homeowner,
It's interesting.
it seems kind of
So the last time they did it was 2018.
Okay.
That's the reason.
Should I go out there and
Yeah, keep going over and over. Although that doesn't affect TxDOT. But
will you redo my street sooner?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So just keep going
Consider
over
it
and over.
done.
Yep.
Who's your roommate?
All right, council, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a long day in front of us. Go ahead, Robbie.
Thank you. Those who haven't filled your plate in the gallery, just continue to do so. Just try to keep it down a little bit. So, our agenda for today is kind of setting the stage for this meeting, talking a little bit about what to expect for the budget workshop, which is in 3 weeks from today. The plan, unless I hear from you as a council, is for us to do that in 1 day. Remember a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had the request to split that into 2 days. We can do that. We've got 2 days reserved for it, but I want to know that today from you guys. If you want to do just 1 day and get her done, or 2 half days, let me know. But right now, it's planned for just 1 long day. It'll be a full day, but we think we can get it done in 1 day. I'll be, Clint will have a good chunk of this. I may throw some things over to Mary. Just kind of play that by ear, but here's your schedule for today.
When do you need that?
Today. If you already know right now, if you want to do 1 day, then
Let's just go ahead and knock it out.
1 day. Is everybody okay? Is anyone not okay with doing it in 1 day? 1 day? Thursday the 15th.
How long would it be?
I will digress. I'm fine. If you guys want to do it 1 day, I'm fine. It's fine.
All right.
I think you would shoot for the 2 days.
I like 2 days, but it's fine. One day.
Fridays are Dom's fishing days. So
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay.
1 day?
Yeah, 1 day.
Okay. We'll go for 1 day. So that'll be good. So there will be no action coming out of today. Today's purpose is to really have a couple of hours of discussion about capital projects, so that we don't have to spend 2 hours at the budget workshop and have 1 day budget workshop. So that's the purpose for today. So there's a few kind of thoughts I want you to leave today with. In addition to just the details that Clint's going to give on the projects, there's some thoughts that if you'll leave with these thoughts today, bring them back with you in 3 weeks, it'll be helpful as we start to kind of set the stage for the budget. We have made great progress on the budget. We've had our department meetings. Mary and her staff are working on putting final touches on the numbers. And we feel like we'll be in good shape with that by next week sometime. All the departments are already off putting their presentations together. So we should be ready for that. But in terms of today, there aren't really decisions to make today. But at the end, there will be a little bit of kind of head and nod directions. Are we headed in the right direction for information that we would bring back at the budget workshop? We'll do that at the very end of the discussion today. So one of the thoughts I want you to understand about where we are just operationally is we're kind of entering into this very capital intensive focus of our operations. And both on the utility side, which we've talked a whole lot about and we'll be talking more about today, but also on the general fund side. There are some projects that we've committed to, like legally, we have contracts and development agreements, had discussions with others about having to do this road and that road, and some of them relate to planned development, some of them are just structure around our industrial park, like Progress Drive and Shepherd Drive. So there's some amount of these projects related to road infrastructure that we've already talked about that we're kind of on the hook for. And then there are some other projects that are on the horizon for us that I want to present to you and today for us to bring back at the budget workshop for direction on do we move forward with those or not. So Bel Air, Heritage Ranch, Hickory Hill are examples of agreements where we already have development agreements in place. Other things that we're kind of on the hook for that aren't necessarily contractually related, but Shepherd Drive for obvious reasons. Lambert is actually one of those that falls into both categories, master plan, but also thoroughfares, and then Moore Street, Interurban Parkway. Not with the bond issue potentially this year, but with a bond issue in the next year or two, are some other projects, TxDOT projects, that are going to require our participation if we want those projects to be moved up on TxDOT's list. For instance, the section between 175 between Texoma Parkway and 82 is not currently, they need our assistance. Typically what they've asked, and that's going to be 10 to 12 or 13 million dollars. So that's not today, likely be next, due to come back with a proposal next year or year after. On the facility side, we just completed the police station. Fire station combo number 1 and 2 is under design, and we'll bring that back to you once we get that. But that's one that's been in the works. We talked about City Hall, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later in the presentation. One that's, again, not on our list to do today, but we should keep on our radar is the Public Works campus. So these would be facilities that are currently at our, what we call a south plant. So it's streets, it's water and wastewater distribution, solid waste, really essentially all of our public works kind of out in the field sort of operations. We're going to need some more. And parks. We've got trails, we've completed our trails master plan, and we've got money allocated over the next few years, a little bit each year for some trails, but if we wanted to supersize that, that would be a conversation we can have today and at the budget workshop. Also today, we're going to be talking a little bit about not just new park development, Sharktooth, and some regional park. That'll be a discussion for later, but existing park upgrades for our major, what I call our regional parks, Fairview, Holland, Old Settlers, MLK, Center Street, Binkley, Pecan Grove, all of those need upgrades. So that can be part of our bond issue as well. So that's on the general fund tax supported side. This is our utility fund side of things that, and we had a separate conversation about updates on our utility plans. But Clint will be going over most of these today, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. What I want you to understand from our plan and how we're approaching this, though, is we're trying to, because of just the immense amount of projects and the cost of those projects, we're really doing what we can to minimize what we have to do today, right? So there's one thought that what are we going to need 5 and 6 now? Another, what do we need today to handle the first phases of our major industry? So we believe, for instance, with some building out of what's currently on the ground and rehabbing what's currently on the ground at the water plant, for instance, effectively recapture 7 million gallons a day of capacity that isn't on the ground for us today. So we're looking at those sorts of things, both at the water plant and at the wastewater plant. Well fields, we're looking at similar ways that we can possibly either bring back into service or increase reliability of certain wells that are high producing wells, but that may have problems, either with water quality or otherwise. So we're looking at those things. And then on the distribution side, so remember we've got the kind of 3 main chunks of how we're looking at utilities: the water plant and the pump station, wastewater plant, and then the distribution system. That's those 3 things there. Well fields is half of that. So these are the types of things, or the methods that we're using to scope these projects, determine the timing of these projects, finance these projects. So phasing the projects is one method that we've used successfully and will continue to use, whether it's a facility or a wastewater plant or another number of projects. We've been successful, particularly on roads that kind of lend themselves to not doing the entire width. So on a 4-lane median divided road, which is effectively 5 lanes, most of the time the traffics don't go from zero, traffic counts don't go from 0 to thousands of cars a day immediately. So one of the things that we can do there that we have done is build half of the road and then maybe the 3rd lane, which ultimately would be a turn lane. And when traffic warrants, finish that out. So we'll be continue to use those sorts of focus on these projects. We also, from a timing standpoint, that's kind of tricky with us having to anticipate or project the needs of our industries or of our other commercial and residential development. So try to do our best to have these projects done not years early and not years late. So we look at timing. We want our staff, and I'll tell you, this is kind of our mantra around here, the right amount of nice. We want it to be all of our projects, whether it's a police station or fire station, city hall or roads or whatever. We want it to be functional. We want it to be something we can be proud of, but it shouldn't be, we're not designing to win awards necessarily on our project, right? So we want it to be functional, but not opulent, I guess. Letting development pay for development through these mechanisms, I think we've done a pretty good job of doing so far, and we'll continue to use that. I threw SEDCO in there just because I didn't have room for another bullet on this slide. They're not necessarily development, although they're economic development, but we are using SEDCO to help things work financially over the next few years, and then contributing dollars to different projects, towards different projects to help offset our costs there. And then we want to do, this will come up at the last part of our session today, rate increases that allow us to take into consideration changes in our assumptions, because right now we're trying to develop a utility rate plan based on assumptions on volumes that are going to be coming online. Right now, they are just that. They're assumptions, but they're based on the best information we have today. What I can tell you with certainty is some of those assumptions are wrong. I don't know which ones are wrong yet, or short, or maybe we're off on the timing of something, but that's why we look at these things several times a year, is to evaluate how quickly these projects may be coming online, particularly the industrial projects that are going to have big impacts on our volumes. So we want to, on our rates, we want to attack those in a way that allow us not to jump into the deep end immediately, but let's that gradually. So that was from kind of a keeping customers in mind. From a financial focus, these are the things that we'll continue to look at. Keeping reserves at what we need to on our major operating funds, covering our debt service at least 1.05, which is kind of that contractually obligated limit that is placed on us by bondholders. And we only look at rate increases when values on the tax side or volumes on the revenue side aren't sufficient. And then we also just kind of another kind of thumbnail sketch of, are we in line with what our peers are doing? So this is another point I want you to think about as we go into the budget workshop. So I tried to come up with some sort of catchy. Anybody can remember RV, right? So just think of RV. And the RV comes into play on both our general and our utility side. Not the kind of RV that is in Christmas vacation, but rates and values on the general fund side and rates and volumes on the utility side. So there are very few knobs that we can turn to affect revenue, right? So sales tax is what it is. Other than trying to spur through economic incentives, people to invest more or spend more, and therefore generate sales tax. The sales tax rate is what it is. Franchise rates, they are what they are. So we're left with property taxes in the general fund. Control property tax values. That's the appraisal district. So really the only knob we turn there on the revenue side is our tax rate. Okay, now we can look at some of these other methods. Some of these other methods to help offset, like using SEDCO or using impact fees or others. But on the property tax side, which is really property sales and franchise taxes are the lion's share of our revenues, that's the only knob that we can turn on the general fund. A difference for our debt. So R is rates, V is either volume or values. Okay, so remember that as we get into the last part of our slide deck and then carrying that into section at the budget. So next section is grants, and then I'll wind us up here.
All right, so I'm going to talk about street and drainage projects first, and then jump into water plan. Talk about kind of the timing, the adjustments we've made over the last couple of years on plans, and kind of how we got there, and what our current plan is. Anybody know where that is? So that's a drainage project that was also a street improvement. I will say that Dr. Katsky, the orthodontist, loves the grass we put in. So my daughter is getting ready to go in there. That's always a good thing when the adjacent business owner likes the end product. So Bel Air Boulevard, they're building houses as we speak. They're also starting on phase 2. Which is this whole section down here of residential areas. So part of our agreement for phase 1 is we help through the reinvestment zone pay for Bel Air Boulevard and some water relocations along this section of 1417. The second part of our development agreement was actually phases 2 residential and that is to finish out Bel Air Boulevard down to the creek, and then also that cost is about $3 million. That one won't be in phases. They will build all 4 lanes as they've done on the first portion of that. And then London Lane, which is this area in green, which will back tie into a potential school site and multifamily along this area. That won't be a median divided street like Bel Air Boulevard. That will just be a standard. And then Beach Club Boulevard will tie into Legacy 75, which will be kind of that Marshall Lagoon area. Some pretty cool architects on figuring out how to make all that work. Taking it down to 2 lanes with pedestrian-friendly access all around that area. But all of those things are they're 90% design is complete. They're rolling on moving dirt on the single-family portion here, and we'll start to see up this time.
Boulevard, they've been clearing right before you get to the lot. What's going in there?
That's the first multifamily.
Because that's been cleared in the last week.
Yeah, there was a textile easement that they had to get abandoned. Ours, I think, the governor. That's been done, and I think they're just waiting for construction prices to buzz before he gets. The plans are, I think, that'll be the first multifamily building. I think a couple of people in this room might be. He's doing lots of cool stuff.
Is there any update on, and I don't know if it's phase 1, 2, mentioned all of them on their lagoon, swimming pool?
So yeah, that's tied directly in with Beach Club Boulevard. So before they can actually put payment down on Beach Club, they need to know exactly what that lagoon looks like and how that ties into the commercial. Haven't seen an actually updated project plan for that.
No, but they're under design. I mean, they're 50-60% done on the design with that.
I just knew to pay for Beach Boulevard, it was kind of the lagoon.
Yes, and part of our incentive agreement, some of those incentives that he gets don't kick in until dollars in order to get that. Plus, they're telling everybody that buys out there that's going to happen. Uh-oh, I did something. Okay, the next portion is West Moore Street, which we're wanting to change the name of that to Urban Parkway. Moore Street originally kind of ended in the 1417 area and then changed the road that ended. But the future plan for this street is to connect Center Street all the way down to 902. The interurban railway actually followed up through here and tied into certain areas of this road that are actually going to be on real right of way. And so the suggestion was let's that instead of calling it Moore Street. Not official yet. I think they'll probably have some say in that, but I thought it was a good. But currently under design and under getting right of way is the extension and then improvement of Moore Street between Park Avenue and Center Street. If you'll know, when the high school went in, Moore and improved it from West Travis to Park. The next phase is up through there. This is one of those projects that timing of it is kind of us deciding when we want to do that. The Grove is under construction for homes, and it's currently a 24-foot asphalt road. The line will be for 4 lanes with a median. The expectation and these costs would be to put in the west 2 lanes of that all the way to Center Street. Tie that in. There's rumblings of development up close to Center Street and on through there, so that's a project that will need to be done. All, or do we want to wait a little at that project? This is basically a continuation of that road, right? We're about to wrap up the section between Travis Street and 1417. And it will continue straight across the street down to Flannery. And then Progress Drive will be extended. Currently, it's a dead end, and it will Flannery and then come up, which will give the industrial park a second access point besides Hawking Drive, which lots of benefit there when the rail spur is being used. Hawking Drive from going anywhere. This is a SEDCO funded project. There's also a proposal for another chip factory down here. Chips. Not technology chips, but there'll be another public road that comes in here and ties back into that. That is a real deal. They've got incentive packages set up for that company. There'll actually be 3 companies: the company that does the corn mill, and then that company also manufactures the equipment to create the corn mill, and so there'll be a portion of that makes the equipment. There'll be a portion that actually does the processing. there'll be potentially a third company that comes in that actually makes the kind of chips, but same thing there. Shepherd Road. This is probably the first road. Not probably. This is the first road that's not a TxDOT road that's considered a major thoroughfare through Sherman. So ultimately, it will be 6 lanes instead of 4 lanes. Through coordination on the Shepherd Place plan development and the TI traffic impact, we've come back that this needs to be 4 lanes currently, not just building half of the road, but actually building 4 lanes with the median. Cross section will look very similar to what they're doing in 17. 4 lanes with the median, and then in the future we'll build the 2 interior lanes. And so that's why this cost, $12 million, is higher than the other projects, because we're twice as much of a road. So that will extend to the extent of the TI property, which is also an extension of Interurban Parkway, Moore Street, that we're working on plans for, and then it'll neck back down county road condition. We have done some alignment studies to tie it into Farmington. That will be directly. 1417 expansion. So they're getting closer to being done with the north portion between 56 and 82. And they're finalizing the design on this next phase, which is from 56. Travis, we've been talking about this for several years now. They're about to issue a contract to us to allow us to do right-of-way acquisition. I've been working on all along, but now that it's an official TxDOT project, they've got to have a contract set for right-of-way. That should be coming in the the expectation is to try to get right-of-way and design completed by next March or April. Project on the list to start construction probably in that 25 time frame. And the goal there would be also ultimate 6 lane. Signals at all the key locations, including some improvements. Another thoroughfare that we've committed to extend is Lambert Road. Back when I first started, we did schematic design for Lambert, Friendship, and Washington. And this is kind of part of the reason we did that is because as development comes, we need to expand. So this development, Hickory Hills plan development, is what kicked off the need for this. Part of the extension is under design by the engineers of Hickory Hill is Lambert between Carriage Estates and where Lambert turns to that will ultimately be Friendship Road and extend Friendship down to the extent of where they're this project was different than the previous ones we did, where the developer is paying for one of the lanes. First kind of step back that we made for affairs requiring developers to pay development, paying for development. The utility package of this included some off-site sewer that we'll see, I think, here a little bit later, but that project was bid opening last week. The water and sewer on this project, and then actually come back and see the developer will actually put in the road with a single family location if we can make part of that development is single family for rent in this area and multifamily here. The single family for rent is currently in construction. Multifamily, I think all 3 phases of this plan development are moving forward. You're not gonna see it.
Yay!
This is a zoomed out version showing future Friendship Road connection between 82 and 56. We do have a schematic design for that, which is 30%, which allows us to plan for right-of-way acquisition as development occurs. The phase that the developer is working on will be basically just north of where the dam to this lake is, out here. And then next phase will be up to Canyon Creek Drive. That portion and this portion between Shady Oaks Lane and the edge of Carriage Estates is about to be under design. The timing of that is one of those that we can move around if needed, but ultimately would need to be done. The proposal currently on that section, because of all the houses and driveways through there, is it's not going to be a median divided road. Basically, 5-lane section with a continuous left turn lane. Those houses can continue back, but then back to the median divided along this area. So new developments, we don't allow any driveways on any of our minor or major thoroughfares. Developments, we try to figure out how to work, try to access where there's divided. At some point there will be. We only have 30% plans right now, and all of that will be dependent on development, right? When someone comes in and actually starts wanting to build houses or retail that we're going to pay for, but we know where it's going to go now. Property owners, most of the property owners are aware of where it's going to go. Don't like it and aren't going to ever develop or are buying property in order to. Yeah, but ultimately it will connect there. We don't currently have in our budget to expand that. Just we know what it needs to look like.
But it'll follow the same. It'll be four lanes.
Ultimately, be 4 lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to be on the east side of.
And same thing with McGee Street. McGee will come through here and tie into Washington and extend. Those streets do extend on the county thoroughfare plan. Our east-west streets do extend all the way out to the 280, past there to the future. On that map, those street names are different. Or to the west they are. This is at O.B. Groner in 1417. If you guys will remember, there was a zone change request for this whole tract west of 1417. Now it's and a portion of that is a multifamily. Developers wanting to build apartments there. Traffic was a concern, and so we talked with that developer. And this project is our portion, which is really intersection improvements at 1417. Developer is designing all of this section to be improved from 1417 to his west property line. Urban gutter concrete street along there, and then when it gets about right here, it's going to flare out and actually have 4 lanes and match kind of what West Travis looks like, so that when whatever direction you're coming to those lights, it's very clear where you go and how do you get offset on one side or the other. So we thought from a safety perspective it made sense of the project, and it does include some signal. Whole road well, but it makes the intersection much safer and then adds capacity through that development for any. We've also had talks and discussions with the developer West as well that has some wanting to do some things there. May see plans and discussions about expanding that. Officially yet, but lots of discussion and under. or maybe purchased these. So that's a project that will help improve the safety. Some additional development. US 82 ramp reversal. This is kind of part of the Heritage Ranch discussions. There's a couple portions of this. One, in order to make the connection to Plainview Road, which we're realigning a little bit to tie into, is it Rex Cruz? Here, we were looking at what would be needed to adjust the ramps to make that more conducive for retail commercial development. So we're looking at, we've hired Lochner, or working with Lochner. We'll see a design contract coming probably in June. Look at reversing the ramps. Other piece of those projects is where this single family development exits at Travis is at Murphy Lane, which is just north of the crisis center. That section of Travis is very narrow, and so we're having them look at left turn lane, that street. We also talked with TxDOT and are going to look at a 30% schematic design of North Creek because they've got signals there now, and that's great, but there's no dedicated left turn lane. Causes traffic to back up there. So the hope is if we get some of that schematic work done, we can head over to TxDOT and maybe they find some additional. That area of town is already very busy with town center. Adding residential units will make it even busier. Account for those types of things.
Hey, one thing on that, Clint, that is going to come into effect here too is so the voters just passed the big school bond, and part of that bond was an elementary school on that track. And so now that they've got the kind of dollars in hand, I mean, not technically yet, but approval for that, my understanding in visiting with Tyson just this morning was they're very close to having an agreement on the site for that elementary school. The timing of that construction, or the timing of opening it, is the next 2 or 3 years. So they would start construction fairly soon. So while we have design going on kind of right now for the ramp reversal, construction of that, although it's to be determined, is not 10 years from now. It's in the next year or 2 or 3, so that there's plenty of access westbound to get off at Plainview to get to the school there. Just another example of kind of the timing of development having an impact on the timing of our infrastructure projects. So.
Probably hit on this a little bit. This is another project that worked with TxDOT, which is to finish out the section with Sherman. Noel with TxDOT has made a commitment to try to continue to push 75 projects out from the county line. Pavement improved to the full 3-lane section, exit ramps, and hope would be everything north of Dallas is built to interstate standards. This from 75 to I-45. That does is it allows us to access a different bucket of money, frees up the current bucket of money for other projects like 1417, Travis, 82. Doesn't meet the interstate currently. But this next section will go from Texoma Parkway all the way up to 82. I haven't got any confirmation if we're going to leave the famous exit ramp onto Texoma Parkway in place. I'm pretty sure. Enjoy it while you can. But that would expand that area to full 3 lanes on each side, so 6 lanes. About 130 million. Right-of-way agreement that we approved for a small portion here. But there's also projects south of 1470 works. Crossing up. This is another small drainage improvement project that I might have mentioned before. I'm not sure. This is at Rex Cruise in Hickory. There's a single family development north of there. You can kind of see this residential area through here, which is Ricketts, and Yorkshire goes through here. That backs up to a small but still legitimate floodplain. Flooding historically there, and so this location is where they were going to put a detention pond, actually on the 2012 Post Oak Creek flood mitigation plan to put in some sort of regional detention here. The problem with that plan is the cost benefit ratio always makes sense. I don't want to spend $12 million to protect $2 million of property value, and so the opportunity came to partner with this developer in upsizing his pond. So there's no property acquisition, and so we ran several different analysis on sizes of ponds and kind of a right fit for this area. Pond and some of his upsized, and the offsetted cost of what he would have to pay if he was without the upsize versus what we would like is about $500,000. So that's expected to be a development for him after it's complete. The benefit of that is there's some houses through here that become better protected against flooding. But the big piece for me was that Ricketts will no longer flood in a 100-year rain, as will the flooding that would happen over Yorkshire will be eliminated. Emergency services standpoint, we can get where fairly small amount of money. Piece of this too is if we don't now, so that's a drainage project that we see as important. Interurban Parkway, we kind of talked about that. What spurred this was TI developing right beside it. We knew we needed to make sure and have an alignment study done, so we knew right away we needed where. There's also a sewer line that runs through here. That you'll see on a later slide that becomes important. You want to make sure the sewer and water is in good shape before you pay on top of it. And so this project is really up in the air of when it's funded and when it's needed. There's a very expensive bridge in phase 3. That's about $23 million that goes over the BNSF Railroad in Choctaw Creek. And so that kind of puts a limit on when and how this road. My expectation is as TI begins kick off the need to extend this street at least or on that to come. Got the alignment done. We're kind of waiting. Have enough now to start getting right. It also kind of follows the alignment of the 36 later as well, so it's kind of a utility south end of Sherman. Utilities, here's the water line. So we're still working on easement acquisition. We pre-procured some valves. We pre-procured the boring contractors, the clearing of the site. Currently out for bid is the pipe itself. And after that, then they'll assign the actual installation costs and have a final not to exceed number in contract. So working vigorously on that, trying to get all the easements and require schedule. That it's about a $60 project. This is a smaller project that is relocating a water line that goes through a portion of Bel Air and also providing surface water to this development. Currently, there's a large diameter line that runs along 1417. It is our groundwater wells. That gives us the ability for this area and a larger area in general to pick which system. So part of us, all sides, drives which tees up the ability to go both ways, right? When we first started, we thought for sure they'd be on surface water. As demand for the surface continues to grow, they may be on well water, short term or long term. We don't. We want to phase that portion and time it with the timing of when the construction of that area of Bel Air goes. On our list, I think every 3 months says, where are we at? Do we need to bid this yet? And I said, no, not yet. And it will bid it whenever the timing of the rest of that. This is another one of those timing pieces. Ultimately, this water line that feeds Howe is very old and needs to be expanded. It's currently a 15-inch, probably a 21-inch. But it's on our list because the road is there. Probably some things that TI will need to do to relocate. On our list to get under design ahead of time.
And Clint, that'll be needed regardless of whether Howe is in our system or not, right? Because the Shepherd Place is going to be a large driver of.
Yeah, and that whole area, I mean, if Howe drains to it, the whole south portion of west of 75 feeds to this at some point. This is separate from some of the larger lines along Prop Hall that may need to be those increase, but it's a timing thing for sure. Not as big of a project, $3.5 million, but still, you don't want to do it. This one is needed soon. Old section along Post Oak Creek. Here's 1417 here, and yeah, Lamberth Road there. We have a couple sections of sewer line through this development that were all within the creek beds, which is very common. The problem in this area is it's experienced some very significant erosion time. And so we had a study done by Hewitt Zoller to look at alignment. Did it make sense to put it back where it was in the creek, which requires substantial ability, all that kind of stuff, or did it make more sense to realign it? And cost projections back, would it make more sense to realign it within the street throughout all of those service connections? So good news is there'll be a new street there after the project gets done. So, but that's moving forward because of the extent of the cost and the amount of traffic concerns with residents. We split that into two projects. One project and get it completed and then come back a year later. Alleviate a lot of concerns. Like that slide. This is another capacity issue, aging pipe over areas that have a lot of I&I infiltration. Tom looked at what it would take to improve this line. It goes from First Street up past the Armory. We're expanding. There's a couple pipes in there. There's a 12-inch and then a 15-inch was put in. We're replacing both of those with a 21-inch, which is the ultimate capacity we need for the drain. Also fix I&I problems for better flow to the wastewater treatment plant. That project the design is complete. We're waiting on an easement to get south area, and then that one we get off and ready to go construction or out to bid. This is a project that came up as part of our master plan. So at the workshop, we'll have probably 20 minutes talking about our water and wastewater master plan. They have models that they calibrated to ensure what's happening in our current system and allows developers, us to see real time what effects developers have on our system. So one of the projects that came up was the need for a larger line between the west side of 75 and the east side of 75 to better connect that pressure zone. On a typical day, it's probably not a big deal, but when you have high water demand, water needs to move freely. Some of our critical connections under 14, 17, and 75 have been kind of for own efficiency, I guess. So this is a fairly small project that we can get done by bore in order to tie those two areas on there. Added that. That's a new project that didn't have a full understanding of the need until after we got the master water model complete. There's a couple others that are on that plan that you'll see that will add. This is a capacity project as well. This is Bel Air here. Wastewater plant is up here. And this project was identified as Crossroads continue to develop the potential for hotels and retail and hospital use. It was determined that this line was not sized large enough. And so we've gone in here. I think originally there was 8-inch and 24 spots. It's been expanded in we're abandoning the existing lines and replacing them with a 30-inch down to a 24-inch. The first phase, which is this area in pink, has been bid and is been awarded, and so they'll be moving with construction any day now. There was some coordination with the railroad that we had to do Bel Air to make sure to get that lined up, but that will be another good project once it's done. That line's very old. Jumping to the water treatment side of things, we're starting all the way up north at our pump station. So because of the weather event we had in February of 2021 already, we looked at adding generators out at the Lake Texoma pump station. We're still working on that. The timing of this is dependent on the North Texas electrical upgrades that they're out there. Been delayed by about 6 months, but are still on track to better quality power, more consistent power to the pump station. Once they're done with that, then we can come back and put some generators high power to our pumps in case. Another piece with the demand of additional water is we need to be able to provide that water out of the lake. And so the proposal is to add, currently there's 4 spots for Sherman pumps. You can kind of see the dots there on the pump station. There's one that's empty. The other 3 have 7 million gallon day pumps. The proposal is to add 1 16 million gallon pump to the end and then replace one of the 7 million gallons with another 16. Thus, 30 to 40 million gallons of capacity. The key to that TCQ requires is max capacity is assuming that your best pump is down. So if one of the 16s goes down, then we at about 30 million gallons. So effectively 40 if one goes down 30. But that's a program that is currently under design and hope to have installed before 2025 in order to allow us to pull more water out of that. Part of our agreement with North Texas, their pumps are much, much larger than ours. For some reason, this project was delayed and we needed pumping capacity. We've started conversations with North Texas about a short term to use more of their pumps for shorter duration time. Got a little bit of redundancy project, but still very important. That's part of the current water treatment plant upgrades. So we've been back and forth on a lot of these. The easy, when we knew we needed to expand the plant, the easy no-brainer was to expand the current RO building. It was designed for currently gallons with an additional 5 to be added really easily, not cheaply, but easily. So we moved forward with that as soon as we could because that was the best kind of fix there. And then we went back and forth on, do we fix the conventional plant? It was operating about 75%. And to do that, we were going to be spending dollars. Or do we go ahead and build another plant, another RO facility? When we first started the process, the thought was, okay, let's just build a new facility, bite the bullet, get it done, and get rid of the conventional plant. Start getting pricing back on this second plant and go, not the best use of our money right now. So we went back to Jim and his guys and says, what would it take to get the conventional plant back in operation for another 10, 15, 20 years? Jim's guys, to their credit, said, hey, we can do most of this stuff in-house. So his guys are saving the city millions of dollars by doing it in-house on their schedules versus subbing it out. We can't do that all the time, but his guys did a good job of taxpayer dollars. And so the current plan is we've got a generator budgeted on the books. And actually it's this next. They're going to rehab the water filter, mixed media. They're going to actually remove the EDR, which we've been talking about historically. It's fallen apart. They've actually talked to a company that has updated technology and are going to reinstall new EDRs out there and replace some stuff inside the flock set basin. All these things you should have really a lot of detailed questions. And then replace the mixer. So all of that will allow us to have full capacity of the conventional treatment side, which is about 10 million. Buy us time until 26, 27, when we may need even more than that, which is the south plant. The other big project, which was a huge win, I believe, for staff and for our engineers, was our concentrate discharge line. We do have an approved permit from TCQ. Take the brine discharge from our treatment plant and put it back into Texoma. And surprisingly, to do that, we just need to extend this force main from the ponds that we have there at the plant to right about here. And from there, it's gravity flow all the way back to Texoma. So the largest portion of the expense of this project is the pumps required to pump that. Talking about millions of gallons. That's been approved. TCQ also didn't put any limits on that discharge. Be concerned with the high salts or solid content, which is already in Texoma, like we're treating water already. But that's a huge deal. We've been working a long time with the Whites and the Youngs, who are the adjacent property owners, on getting permission. This haven't finalized the price, but we do know the location now. They're okay with that location. That's a big deal. When me and Tom first got here, I think the plan was to pipe it all the way back to, that was going to be like a $40 million project. And that was in 2010 prices.
Yeah, right.
So
80 now.
What it is now. So it's a really big deal. TCQ worked with the city of Sherman and staff to get this project done. Not a showstopper to anybody that sees it, but to staff, it's a very big deal. This is the future plan, right? So this is a big cost that you guys recently approved, which was to do the engineering and layout design of what the future of the plant looks like. There's been lots of discussion about what is phase 1 of that building versus phase 2 versus a future phase, but we wanted to make sure we had enough room and that we had the design ready to go so that when we need it, pulling on it. Major industries like TI take about 2 years to build phase. We need to be up and ready so that the design was done, permitting was done, and so it's going to take at least 2 years to build things like this. they are a significant cost. Want to get the design ready. Oh, absolutely when we need. Other portion of this, as you guys know, is this is on the surface side. The other piece that we're looking at, and there'll probably be a contract coming in June with the engineering firm, groundwater side. How can we improve that? What are the ways our wells, whether it's capacity or number of wells, add capacity on the other side of our system. Wastewater treatment plant. I'm almost done. Wastewater treatment plant. This is the current plant, and this is the proposed future plant number 2, as I'm calling it. Current projects that are underway. We're looking at doing some design and upgrades for our digesters. We're currently working on our EQ basin and the blowers and all the electrical components out there. The electrical is probably, Nathan, 30, 40 years old. At a wastewater plant, that's even older because of corrosive properties out there in the plant. So we're looking at doing a wholesale electrical upgrade, including generators, and then expanding our lab to meet its demand and the timing of it. We've been doing a lot of work out there that were needed because of the facility's age. And then there's other projects we're doing right here. And we went back and forth with the consultants on treatability. What are these energies going to be? A lot different than domestic flows. And how do we handle that? And how do we manage that risk? And so ultimately the decision was made not to expand the conventional plant, create a whole separate train for that industrial flow. So everything from the high school down all the way to TI, and that's kind of corridor 902 will flow into this new proposed facility. And it is designed to handle more of the contaminants.
Is that on city property or county property?
Glad you asked. Look at this map. So this highlights all the property that the city owns out there. We own pretty much this is Highway 11 here, and here's 1417. So we own all of that property. This is what we're currently using here. The lagoons are here. The reason we purchased all of this is we used to land apply our sludge out there for farming purposes. Permitting requirements changed on the quality of that sludge, which made it not economical to do that anymore. So now we haul our sludge to the landfill, but the proposed expansion will be right here, with the potential of future expansion even further south. So we feel like we got plenty of land out there. We're kind of bound by a creek and a floodplain, which is positive from a development standpoint. Not going to have a lot of development happening here because
But that, all right, question. If we own all of that, okay, property, one section of property there that we think is.
yeah, and all of this over here.
Yeah, so I just seem to be on both sides of that. Are we just trying to squeeze it out, or ever going to annex that?
Bring it into the city limits,
Yes.
or own it as?
Bring it into the city limits.
The property around it is already city limits now. Remember that was just expanded. That's Luella Road there. Is that right? Yeah.
This has been,
That's very recent, within the last year.
and this section here, we're also under discussion with about the annexing. They have to voluntarily annex. Yeah. So yeah, our water plant and our wastewater plant either. To locate them in various, the highest area of town, the lowest area of town, or out into your hospital so that move it. So this expansion, again, it was one of those timing and phasing. So originally the engineers said, hey, when you expand based on your demands, you're going to need balance of capacity. Currently, the conventional plant was permitted for 16 million. But when do you need that 24? And so we went back and forth. Originally, the thought was 8 million would be the first phase, and you do it in 3 phases. When we saw what the estimated prices were and the updated flow information from our industry, they said, we can't fund that. And so we pulled back to a 4 million. Phase 1 is 4 million. Now, it may be back-to-back construction out there, but it's phased and compartmentalized as the area you see. So the red is phase 1, which will expand the capacity by 4 million gallons a day. Also, that's pulling some of the domestic flow from the high school and Crossroads off of the conventional plant, which allows us for additional capacity there for everything else in town that's expanding. And then the second phase would be in blue. And then the third phase is phase that probably into 2. That would expand our water treatment capacity to 40 million gallons a day total, which is a lot of water. So currently we're at that 10 to 12. So I feel like this plan has the ability to 50 years, but not spend the money until the critical piece of this. So we could potentially even expand. But that's the current plan. Currently under design, Nathan's group will continue on making it the right amount of nice for Sherman. And all right, you get to the fun part now.
I'm not sure. Well, that's yeah. So what is the right amount of nice for a wastewater plant? Sure. I don't know. Okay, so shift our thinking a little bit. What you've heard so far are the projects that we kind of have to do, right? Those are projects that are driven by development or by development agreements or by other growth that is already happening. Yeah. Yes. Well, so West Travis has already built its ultimate 4-lane median divided. Now, Moore Street is just like that eventually. And our timing of doing Moore Street 4 lanes is going to be how quickly that the rest of that area divides. Because just the traffic from a stadium event alone isn't going to be enough to help drive us moving that 4th Street project up to 4 lanes. Now, as the area just north of the high school, which is under construction right now, they're putting in utilities and all that. So as that area of town grows, that would be the driving force for us expanding. But West Travis is what it needs to be ultimately. And in 1417, he talked about that's your other route kind of into.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And I don't know if they're going to have enough parking there on site or not, but they're supposedly working with property owners on the south, the Munson, on maybe parking. That's their business, not ours.
We'll probably require a traffic impact.
And the X.
Yeah.
So say that win first.
Hey, it's a development. They've got to do something for us to do something.
I mean, it's a phased approach.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll move to doing that when they face back into winning.
We'll come to the table when they have
We've
the
made steps towards just the last 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So these next few slides are not part of that group that the have-tos, here are some things that are on our radar that we believe are worthwhile, okay? And I've alluded to a few of these earlier. So these will be examples of the types of things that we expect at our major parks, Han, Fairview, etc. And we talked about some of these during our departmental meetings with, so these kind of fresh in our mind. These are examples of not just replacing the apparatus and equipment at these parks, that many of which are at least as old as I am, because I've played on little rocket slides, which I couldn't play on the other day because it was about 85 degrees outside, which means the slides were about at 140.
Come on, we used to play on.
I mean, I didn't mind but my grandkids. Well, kids are one thing. So anyway, we're looking forward to some replacement of some very tenured equipment out there, and also that would come along with maybe a more appropriate all-weather surface. You've seen it at some other parks around. And I think that would be a good idea for our major parks in town. We obviously can't do that for every single piece of equipment at every single park that we have. But our major parks, I think that would be a really good investment. So here are some examples of what some of those could look like. That one they have Fairview Park, but it doesn't necessarily have to just be at Fairview or this equipment. These are just close-ups of those things. This is another example. Again, it says Han Park. It doesn't have to be Han Park, but this is the type of thing. Oh yeah, and that's our van control tower. I know. I'm telling you, I like these. I like this concept. I really like these concepts. Oh, and that's just another close-up. There was obviously some thought put into this being at Han, particularly with the airplane and control tower. That wasn't by accident. So that's those last few slides were playground equipment. These are splash pads that we likely would put at some of the major parks again. Very well, the one at Han Park used all the time.
Two birthdays already.
And there are other things that Han, because we drive so much business there or usage there, the parking lot needs to be enhanced and expanded. The pavilions are old there, and so we actually have ideas there that we'll present at the budget workshop for expansion of some of these things. Okay, so those are just examples of spray grounds. They're going to range. The very small ones are going to be a few $100,000 on the low end to closer to $1 million on the high end, depending on how big, what their, these gallons per minute is going to be a function of how big the facility is and what the apparatus is on it. So hundreds of thousands on each of those, up to say close to $1 million. So our thought is. Yeah, no, that's a lot. When you're talking about 1,500 gallons a minute, I don't know that we're going to be doing that. That's several of our largest wells producing just to. So.
Gray water.
We'll come back to that. Yeah, very possibly. Yeah, my grandkids know. Yeah, supposedly we treat it to such a level, you should be able to drink it when it comes. But have you tried that, Nathan? Okay. Oh yeah. It's possible that there could be some recirculation and reuse after it's treated on site though. So we would look into those things. This is just another close-up of, that's an actual picture, not a, okay. So, that was in the park. There'll be more parks presentation at the workshop. But wanted to just kind of tee that up for your expectation of what we would be coming back with. Okay, so there's going to be two parts to this, just like there were two parts to Clint. So the first part is going to be our general fund, tax-supported projects. The other is going to be utility projects. So we've identified the total of most of what Clint just talked about that are nothing exciting, just a bunch of roads, is about 55 million, and it's made up of these projects. The Bel Air stuff that we've talked about, these projects on Flannery and Progress, which by the way are CEDCO funded, so those won't count against, CEDCO will be paying the debt service. So those won't really count against this. But it still has to make the list here. Shepherd and the things that go along with that, and then Moore Street. So that's 43 just by itself, just a bunch of roads and drainage. We've got some facilities up here that we've already kind of, most of which we've talked about. We haven't talked about this public safety trunking system, the new generation of communications with our police and fire, and how they communicate internally and externally with other organizations. There's kind of two paths that can be taken there. This is the cheapest path. It's kind of here's my explanation. This is Dr. Thunder, and the other one, which is AT&T, Motorola, is about 14 million. Dr. Thunder or Dr. Pepper. There are other entities that are using this type of system. So we don't know what the path is going to be because we're still looking into that, but I'm just saying it's on the low end, it's a few million. On the high end, which we're not ready to even bring that as an alternative, like 14. So this is no matter how you go, but this is the cheaper option that we believe could be a viable option, and we should be able to speak to that at the workshop.
Yes, sir. Okay. We're going on a trip tomorrow.
Okay. So we're hopeful that this one's going to work out. So you add up all of these things that are a bunch of boring roads and those made just basic facilities, 55 million. That's on what we're calling kind of the required, just basic stuff. The other things that add up to 37 are the things that we don't absolutely have to do. There's no requirement by commitment that we've made or by contract, but those add up to about 38 million. And those can be broken into two groups. Parks, that was about 16 million, with 6 million of that being things that we've talked about like at last budget work session. And 10 million as a bucket for parks expansions and trails and the splash pads and the other park improvements that I just showed you pictures of. So that's about 16 million. We have just a placeholder in here because we don't have the data back yet. So we're not prepared to say City Hall is going to cost that. That's just a placeholder for now. There will be a presentation at the workshop about City Hall. And we'll have more information there. But so if you add all those together, it's $93 million. Proportionately, half of that streets, and the other half, about a third of that is facilities, and a sixth of that is parks. What does that mean on a tax rate basis? So based on our preliminary values that we have from the appraisal district, that is 4.5 cents. So the have-tos are within our current, if we don't want to change the tax rate at all. Anything beyond the have-tos are that add up to about 38 million is 4.5 cents. Broken down to 4 decimal places the estimated impact of that. So there's no decisions to make today on that. What I want you to do, though, is take this home and be thinking about those things as we come back to the workshop. So if we did that today, at the best we know, the rate would be 51.5 cents. Okay?
It's the maximum voter approved.
Now, voter approved rate,
Oh, I promise I didn't. Oh, but hey, look at that.
But hey, as a transition to the next slide, yeah, we estimate the adjusted voter approved rate is about 53.7. And so that would still leave about 2 change on the tax rate. So we think that's going to end up at about 53, nearly 54 cents. Speaking of that, these next 2 slides are just rehashes of our planning meeting, which just walks you through kind of the mechanics of the voter approval rate and the no new revenue tax rate. And we kind of focused on this unused increment that gets tracked for a rolling 3 years and then applied to this, what otherwise would be your voter approved rate. This is the adjusted voter approved rate. So here's what we think that's going to look like in 24. We'll have as updated information as we can get, but you just need to know that the data we get from the appraisal district is preliminary. It's going to change. It's now in the workshop. It's going to change after the workshop. In fact, it'll change after they send out certified totals, because it's just, you have to stick in the ground at some point. But the best information we have today, that's kind of what we're looking at. These next few slides are just what we'll present every time we come to you with these peer data. So this is our historical rate for both the debt and the M&O rate. You can see that our M&O rate has kind of peaked out a few years ago and is hanging around 26 cents right now, which is kind of low compared to the M&O rate, kind of low compared to peers as well, which we'll see later too. This just tracks the growth in our property tax base based on what is new value coming on the rolls, which is blue, and what's increased in existing values coming on the roll, which is purple. These next 2 slides are comparing our rates to other similarly sized cities, with the blue on other cities are their M&O rate, and the green their debt rate. Ours are yellow and red or orange, whatever color that is. And this is about, again, 26 cents, and this is, the proposed rate is also about 25 cents on the debt side. Here's our current rates as well. And then this just shows on a per capita basis. So this is dollars of property tax per person. This is where we stand currently and what it would be with a 51.5 cent tax rate.
But theoretically, other cities are just like us. They haven't fixed their tax rate and done that. So
that's right.
When it shows we've moved up,
yeah,
theoretically,
my baby
we may
moving
not
up
have.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
They will have moved up.
So
Well, the interesting thing, Robbie, if you go back, if you look at this and you look at the debt side, every one of these cities that's growing has a larger debt side.
no, that's
One
right.
of the cities that's not doesn't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, which is really how we started out this whole thing, nearly 2 hours ago, was we've shifted into this very capital intensive, because we're in growth mode, project basis. And so, to your point, Josh, the ones that are, the Hearsts and the Bedfords of the world that are built out, their proportionate debt rate is very low. The ones that are expanding, like Midlothian and Waxahachie and Sherman and Rosenberg, which is down in that's Houston, it's in Houston. So the ones with larger debt rates are the ones that are growing at a fast clip like we are. So That's just to be expected.
Bobby, every time we go over this slide, I always mean to ask you, cities change every single year, never the same group of cities. Where do you pull these out there that?
Well, it's interesting you ask that because I did pull them. That's why the cities have changed. Actually, probably the best one, just because, not just who responded.
We're just using it from a population range.
Well, even the other was kind of a population range in large part. It's just a different source.
Who responded to the survey.
We just try not to recreate the wheel. If there's data out there that's already available, that is kind of our basis of comparison. We do the same thing, by the way, on the facility side of the shop. We get some data from Dan, from Will Dan, because they do a lot of these rate surveys. So that's one kind of comparison. But we have this. CML also does not just a tax and debt survey, but they do a utility rate survey that we our basis, and then again, that's just who responds to their survey. But then we sort it by cities our size, 50,000, 30 to 50, or 30 to 60, that range. We're about 48,000 right now in population, so that's our basis of comparison. This is just kind of fun facts to bring to life the party at your next party. How much does 1 cent on our tax rate give you in bonding capacity? About $8.5 million, which equates to about a little over 500,000 in annual revenue. So you can do the math there. A little over 60,000 per $1 million bonded is what the cost is. And this is what we've already talked about. At our current tax rate of doing no parks, no other facilities besides the basic stuff, 55 is what we can afford. And the final thing on the CO part, and I'm like 5 minutes away from being done here, so just hang with me. So last time we talked about House Bill 1489, which since then is dead on arrival, and it was replaced with House Bill 4082, which was left standing in committee, which just means it didn't make it to the vote of both chambers. So that one's dead. Now, there was a Senate version of those that basically kind of would do the same thing, which is any debt that's issued by the city would have to be approved by a direct vote, a referendum. That one didn't make it off the Senate floor either. So our best information, and I think they're either done this week or maybe next week. They're rolling up to a close. Is unless there's a special session, there shouldn't be any legislation this time around that puts a clamp on our ability to issue. So that's good news. Okay, summarizing the utility side of things. So these next two slides are slides that, again, today they're correct, and as far as the timing, we don't know what the ultimate timing is going to be. This is our best guess today according to our plan. So we've got, you guys have G2A's already issued that. You guys have approved this. This is the one that went to the, you guys in G2A most recently, which is our Part 2 South plant, whatever you want to call it, the wastewater plant, the 4 MGD that's going to handle a lot of our our Blaylock area, Sherman High School, some other things. And then also the rehab of the conventional plant that Jim and his crew are going to do. So that's 175. That's in project cost. The bonds may end up being more than that for issuance costs and capitalized interest, but those are the estimated project costs. So 2024 is a list of other projects, some of which Quentin has already talked about. Upgrades at the plant, at the pump station, and I believe the terminal storage reservoir at the water plant is in there as well. So that's more of a catching up sort of list. And then the timing, particularly of these last two for 26 and 28, at some point, we don't know when the water plant is going to be needed. We don't know what the cost is exactly. What sort of improvements are we to be able to make to the well system between now and then? Even if we do need it, are we doing 15 MGD, or are we going to do 5? A lot of unknowns at this point. We don't have to know today. But it's on our radar that after we use our additional, basically 7 million gallons a day capacity that we're building our water treatment plant, at some point we're going to have to expand it, and we'll come back to you with more details there. Okay, so these next two slides, or few slides, does everybody have one of these in your handed out this morning? So I put this in there yesterday when I finished, and after lunchtime and the end of the day, we got these that we're handing out. So don't get too wrapped up in the numbers, because I want you just to take away a couple of things from this. What this was reflecting is, hey, what kind of level of increases might we need overall, in our rate structure to pay for the debt service that's coming on? And that would be low double digits, or single digits at some point. Okay, and that was really just to gauge, making sure that we stayed at least at 1.05 on our debt service coverage, and that our reserve levels are adequate. Okay. Since that time, we got these guys, which the purpose of today's meeting isn't to go over the rate study. So this is a draft excerpt from the rate study, and we'll have Dan or Jason from Dan's office come and present this at the workshop. But what I want you to know from this is he's prepared something, a rate structure that is a block rate structure. This is what we talked about at the last planning meeting, where the lower end users, like the residents, aren't the ones feeling the pinch from all of this. So actually right now, this isn't final. I don't know how many, but right now there would be no rate increase for residences. And there would be only modest rate increases for the other users that are above 20,000 gallons a month, right? The average household uses somewhere in the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 gallons a month. Those that have pools and sprinkler systems, more than that. But 20 captures probably 99-point-something% of all residential users. Okay, so that's kind of where we drew the line at, why we drew the line at 20,000. So what these two slides show you is that there is no, overall, there is no 30%, 50% increase in any given year for our residential, for our industrial customers or largest users. We're trying to live by the principles that we just showed you. Hey, that's what do we need for next year? We've got to look at a 5-year look at this, because we can't trudge along if there's some big event in 3 years from now that we need rates to start building today. So what this is meant to do is show you that we have a similar ramping up of rates as we need it, and then ramping back down of rate increases based on the data that we have. Right now, we just have estimates on our usage from our large industrial customers. Next year, we'll have a better idea about what that's going to be, because they'll actually, by summer of next year, at least, CI will probably be pulling some of the water from their new plant, okay? Not in production, but just kind of starting to ramp up. So, my point there is, as our data becomes more clear, we remember our two R and B. When we know what the volumes are going to be, then that helps drive what the rates are, because the function of those two things that help us set the revenues that we need to cover our debt service. So, again, don't get too wrapped up in this, or really in this point, other than to say, if the gradual increase, 5-year look, we'll look at this every year, and we've accomplished with this what we said we were going to do at our last meeting, which is the burden of these impacts shouldn't be felt by the residents. They should be felt by those that are driving the need for this, which are the businesses. Okay. This is just another slide to give you an idea. You guys wouldn't have any or reason to know this, but about 15 years ago, for a period of about 10 or 11 or 12 years, North Texas was going through the same thing in expanding their footprint and their treatability. They had billions of dollars in projects that they had to spread out to all of the ratepayers, and it ended up being nearly 10% a year for a period of 10 years. And so compounded, so 10 years at 10% is only 100%. Compounded, that's a lot more than that. They went from $1.02 to $2.78. So that's more of like 150%. So 172 points. But the point here is we're on the same trajectory, not necessarily of more than doubling our rate. I'm just saying there's going to be a few years where we have to look at the rates because the volumes aren't there yet. And the rate of our increase isn't, we believe, isn't a 10-year look at things. It's more like a 3, 4, 5-year look, okay? So, but it's not, what we're doing isn't unusual. It's what other utility systems do. I just picked North Texas because I remember when this was on. And so the San Antonio water system has gone through the same thing. They've done their major infrastructure improvements, other water systems as well. Okay, so looking forward to the budget workshop. We will bring balanced budgets back to you for the utility and the general fund. Solid waste fund is going to be kind of a little bit hairy. Maybe or maybe not a rate increase, depending on what TASWA does with their distribution. If they distribute more, we probably won't have to have a rate increase. Distribute what they have been distributing, we probably will have to have a rate increase. Not large, but probably single digits, 5 to 10%. More discussion also on how what we presented today fits in. All you have is a little financial picture. And that was intentional, again, so that we don't have to go through this 2 hours of discussion at the workshop. This was to give you a picture of more details on the projects themselves, and then we'll talk about the financials workshop. And then also we'll have presentations from Wildan, from Freeze Nichols, who spent the last 2 years on our utility master plan, and some other presentations as well from Parks and our neighborhood enhancement program. And we'll have 2 desserts again.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. Any other questions? Anything else we need to be aware of as we put final touches on our budget workshop presentation? Well,
just
just in case. So we do have some.
Like have games out there.
Yeah, with maybe new. So that bucket of money that is in parks is really truly a budget right now.
Okay.
And so what I would say is.
We need to fence the park.
Next we have games, you people. Everywhere else we go, we have.
Isn't it cheaper not to build the fence than charge people $1 to come in?
Go. Okay. All right. Well, we will do one day.
Let's make some money.
What I heard. One day for the budget workshop. Josh, if you can only make it half a day, I'll give you a personal tutorial that way. All right. Thank you guys for being here, and see you.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.